name's Renee and this is my cash talking journey. If you're new here, thank you so much for taking a chance and clicking on my video. I hope you decide to like, subscribe and stick around for a while. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your ongoing support. So today is a Budget 101 series. I know I haven't done one of these in a while, but I'm kind of just doing a specific editions of when things arise. So today is going to be like a travel edition. So if you've been around for a while, you know that I'm going to have to go to about 4 hours away for a very minor medical procedure, like day surgery. But there's a lot involved in that for budgeting for us, because our income is so tight. When things like that happen, we have to plan for it and often way in advance. But you could easily adapt this to a vacation or an unplanned trip or even a planned trip. So I thought we would go through step by step in these categories. So accommodation, food, activities and entertainment, pets, home and additional. And I can just go through some of my tips and tricks and ideas that I use when I have to travel. So the first one is going to be accommodation. Now, when I travel, if it's a planned vacation, always try and book off season. So for example, if you want to go somewhere warm and sunny, book it for winter. Or if you want to go somewhere that is on the cooler side, go in summer. I know that doesn't really make sense because you want to go there at a certain time, but a lot of the times you can get accommodation so much cheaper if you're off season and outside of school holidays. So for example, if we were going to go to Brisbane, which is notoriously sunny all the time, we would book in winter because yeah, it's a bit cooler, but it's going to be a lot warmer than the snow we get here sometimes. So it's often a lot cheaper, and you can often get coupons and discounts for going off season because the accommodation and the resorts or whatever are trying to get people in on the off season because it's considered the less desirable time. So I always do off season if I can. If it's unavoidable and you have to go at a specific time, research is key. So go online, just type in the area you need to go to and accommodation, and Google will bring up a massive list of all the accommodation in that area. You can also use Airbnb. We've only used Airbnb once. We generally prefer to stay in hotels. There's actually one brand of hotel we generally stay in because with William's autism, he gets very anxious in unfamiliar situations and environments. So their hotels are the same. So every hotel is a cookie cutter of the one before. So we could be in two completely different states, but the hotels look the same. So we usually do it that way. But if that place isn't an option, we shop around, and often you can find places that are cheaper than others. It depends on what luxuries you want. The only thing I will say is two tips. One, find accommodation that is close to a grocery store, and two, find one that if possible has a kitchenette. So it could just literally mean a bar fridge, a jug and a microwave, because buying from a grocery store is a lot cheaper than getting fast food or getting room service. So for example, we will book a room with a kitchenette and close to a grocery store. When we get there, we will go to the grocery store and get things like bread, milk, breakfast cereals, snack foods, and things to make like microwave meals. So really basic stuff that will save you a ton of money in the long run. And we just found that really, really, really helpful. We also try and save for an extra night. So for example, if it's $100 per night, we're staying 2 nights, we save $300 because something may happen and you may have to stay unexpectedly for another night, or an expense might come up in the hotel, for example a room service bill or I remember one time we went down to Sydney, which was about 4 hours away, for my friend's wedding. William was only a toddler at the time, and this place was fancy. Like, we could literally afford one night, and that was all we could afford. Like, that took all of our money. And what happened was, he got into the mini fridge. Like, we literally weren't watching him for 3 seconds, and he opened up a thing of lollies. And it was like $6. And we weren't expecting that cost. We didn't have the money for it. Luckily, well, not luckily, but before we could check out, the staff member had to come and check the room to make sure everything was where it should be and nothing had been damaged. When we were leaving, William tripped in the hallway and fell onto the marble floor, and he got a little bit of a bump on his lip. So they gave it to him for free. But if they hadn't, like, we would have been in a bit of trouble, and it was only $6. So always try and save extra for your accommodation. So try and book off season. Make sure you shop around, and make sure you find one close to a grocery store and one with a kitchenette. That's what I recommend with accommodation. Okay, the second one is food. Now with food, like I said before, you're near a grocery store, so we always aim to have one treat meal a day. So that's one either fast food delivery, room service. It could be like when you're out and about. If you're at a theme park, it might be getting lunch there. It might be going to a cafe and getting breakfast. It could be going out for dinner. We always aim for one treat meal a day. The other 2 meals and snacks is all from the grocery store. So for example, in our trip, we're going down the day of the surgery and we're staying overnight. So that night, we're not going to feel like going out and cooking, but our hotel has room service. So our treat meal for that day will be room service, probably for dinner. Or Les might take the kids out and take them to McDonald's for a treat while he's waiting for me to be done, because there's a 4-hour recovery period. The rest of the time, sandwiches, packet breakfast cereals, muesli bars, crackers. You could get ham from the deli. You can get like chicken, things for sandwiches, rolls. You could get microwave meals, like things like noodles. And I mean, it's not the healthiest food, but it's not long term. It's literally going to be 2 days for us, because checkout, I think, is like 10 a.m. So it's literally going to be 2 days for us. But you can also do healthier options from the grocery store. So yeah, kitchen is good. Aim for 1 meal a day. If that's not an option for you and you have to eat out 3 meals, what I would do is go into the area that you're going to be staying in and bring up the food delivery app. So I think Uber is one. We don't have Uber out here. We're too far from the metro area. But like Uber Eats, it can be, we do DoorDash or Menulog. And go onto their app, put in the area you're going to be in, and have a look at the menus. Look at the menus. That'll give you an idea of what things are going to cost when you're down there. So, for example, you could go on and say, okay, this is the kind of breakfast I want, this is the kind of lunch I want, this is dinner, and I will duck into a service station or a gas station, I think the US call it, or like a small grocery store, and I'll just get like some fruit and some muesli bars for my snacks. So you can guess how much it's going to cost you for each meal roughly, and say that can be your aim for saving. So that can be your goal. One thing I noticed is when we go out, if we're having a special meal, I will literally say, okay, it's going to cost us about $50 for that meal. I'm going to take $80. And that's it. So once that $80 is gone, it's gone. So we always like take food with us. So we'll like take a bottle of water. We'll take snacks for the kids. We'll take some fruit. And then if we're, say for example, lunch isn't our treat meal, we would pack sandwiches to take with us, and we would just snack on it as we're doing whatever we're doing. We have a little cooler that goes in our car. It's like we call them eskies here, but it's a cooler. Like it looks kind of like a bag, like a square bag, and we put ice in the bottom, and we just take that, and that's got drinks and sandwiches and all that kind of stuff in it. And something else that I've done in the past, is say for example, I know that I'm going on holidays in 6 months. Every payday I would buy a gift card to a local grocery store of where I'm staying. Or I would take it out of my own grocery budget. So then when you get down there, you've got gift cards that you can use down there. And it could be for food delivery services, it could be for grocery stores. So that's that kind of thing. Okay, the third one is activities and entertainment. I always join local community groups on Facebook and the council Facebook. I mean, because when you finish your holiday, you can just unfollow them. But they always have community events. Often they're free or very, very cheap. So you could plan your vacation activities around free activities. So, for example, like if you come to my town at a certain time, you're going to have the trades fair, which is a gold coin donation, which they do things like blacksmithing and horseshoeing and woodwork and music and dancing, and they have animals and they have arts and crafts, and it's a gold coin donation, which for us is $1 or $2. You might have the book fair, which is basically everyone in the town donates books. They have a massive hall. You go in and you get really discounted secondhand books, and it goes over 3 days. Once again, gold coin donation, so $1 or $2. We had a music picnic in the park. The local music conservatory put on a concert in the park, and it was free. You just rocked up and bought your picnic. So there's all of these often free activities that you can do, or very, very cheap. Or you can find out where all the really good parks are, where all the really good playgrounds are. You can speak to people on the community Facebook pages and said, hey, I'm coming down for a holiday on this date. What kind of cool activities would you recommend for someone on a very low budget? What kind of free activities would you recommend? Does anyone have a good idea of the best place to go to get free kids games? So, for example, here you could go into Kmart and you can get face painting kits, or what are they called? When you paint the statues and stuff, you can get them for like $5. So you could literally go in there to Kmart, spend say $20 and get a whole bunch of activities for kids that you could do in your hotel room or at a local park. So I highly recommend joining community groups and council groups. They're amazing for when you're planning a trip, and everyone's usually really, really helpful. You can also ask them where's good places to eat that's not expensive or family friendly, or good places for a single person to eat. They're a wealth of information. What else is there? If you're going to book a specific attraction, go online and have a look at their website, because often you can get discounts for the early bird booking, which is when you book early. So it could be a week early, it could be a month early, it could be 6 weeks early. You usually get a discount for that, or if you sign up for their their emails, you often get a big discount on that first purchase. So I highly recommend doing that. Okay, pets. Now this is not something that I didn't really think of until I was really thinking like, well, what are we going to do with our pets? So are you kenneling them? If you're kenneling them, how often, how long are they being kennelled for? How much is it per night per pet? Do they need any vaccinations? Are they up to date in their vaccinations? Are you going to have to get them vaccinated so they can be kennelled? Do you have a small emergency fund so that when they're kennelled, if something happens, you've got money set aside to give them care? If they're not being kennelled, are you having someone look after them and feed them? Do you have enough food for that person to take care of them? Do you have like wet food, dry food? Do you have treats? Do they need to be walked? Do you need to account for that? So make sure that you don't forget your pets. Because there's been quite a few times where I didn't really think about it and I went, oh my God, we're leaving in 3 hours and we've got to rush to the store to get dog food, so that someone can come and feed the dogs, and feed the cats. Like, so they're kind of little things that you need, that I had to learn to think about. If they're going with you, do you need anything specific? Like, for example, in Australia, for any animal to travel, like dogs especially, if they are to travel in a car, they need to be wearing a properly fitted harness, and they need to be plugged into the seatbelt buckle, or they need to be connected to an anchor point in the rear of the car. So do you need to buy a harness and a special seatbelt buckle lead? Are you going to be able to have access to fresh water? Are you going to have to take bottled water with you? Do they have like travel bowls for them to eat? Do they need to have specific bedding? Are you staying somewhere that's pet friendly? So that's something also to think about and something to budget for. Evelyn has just woken up. I will be right back whenever I get the chance. Bye, guys. Okay, guys, I am back. It is the next day. So planning, filming didn't go to plan yesterday at all. Everything was a schmozzle. From the time I turned on the camera to start my bulk filming till late last night, it's just been a mess. So budget 101. So we've just done pets. Now home. I don't know how many times we have gone away or had to go on a trip, come home and realize that we've spent all our money while we're away. There is no food in the fridge. The car needs fuel. The animals need feeding, and there's just no money. And it could be up to a week for us between pays. So I have started saving for when we get home. So things like, or preparing for when we get home. So for example, probably a month or two before we are due to go, I will start, whenever my husband cooks, he will do a double batch. So we will eat one half for dinner. The other half will go in a freezer safe and oven safe container. So we usually get the aluminium trays. Put the food in the tray, label it, shove it in the freezer. So that means when you get home, if you don't have the money, you've at least got food in the fridge, and you don't really feel like cooking a meal when you get home. Even for a few days afterwards, you're unpacking, you're washing everything that was dirty, you're putting things away. So you can literally pull the meal out of the freezer, chuck it in the oven, let it heat slowly, and then you've got a meal. And also you're not spending it on takeaway. If you do enjoy things like takeaway when you get home, and that's kind of like a post-vacation treat, start buying gift vouchers for those restaurants, or put money aside in a takeaway envelope and leave it at home, so that when you get home you've got money. Or you've got things like Uber Eats vouchers, so you can order food and get it delivered, or like coupons for things like Pizza Hut or local restaurants, and have it delivered. That can also be a really good, that's also a good gift for someone who is postpartum. Having that there so that they don't have to think about cooking, they just get a meal delivered, is an freeing experience, I tell you. So if you've got a friend that they're having a baby, either make them some meals they can shove in the freezer and then just reheat whenever they're hungry, and they don't have to think about it. They just chuck it in the oven. You can even write the cooking instructions on the lid so that they just follow the instructions and chuck it in. Or get them gift cards for things like grocery delivery, or at grocery stores for delivery, or things like fast food restaurants or food delivery services, or even one of those what are they called, like boxed meal kits, the ones where everything comes in it, you've just got to cook it, and they're generally like under 20 minutes, those meals. So yeah, things like that for when you get home. What else is it for when you get home? I'm trying to think. I'm going through my notes. Another thing I do is bills. So before we're going to leave, because we usually know quite a bit in advance before we're going on a trip, I start paying extra on all my bills. So I start paying extra on my rent, extra on my electricity, extra on my gas, extra on my car payment, my credit card payment. Basically, I just pay extra on all of my fortnightly and monthly bills. It doesn't have to be a lot. But what happens is, as that accrues, for example, like with your rent, for example, as that accrues, by the time you get to your vacation, you could have a week's rent sitting there or a month's rent. So what happens is, when you go on holiday, or if anything pops up just before, and you know it always does, or an emergency happens while you're on vacation, or immediately when you get home, you've got that credit on all of your bills. So potentially, if you've got, say for example, a week's worth of all of your bills paid, you've got a week's worth of income that you usually spend on bills, and you've got it in as a buffer, so that when you come home, there's money sitting there. Or if you're away and there's money sitting there, or if you don't end up using it, you're ahead in your bills. You can, if there's one week where you're really short, you can take a little bit of it and keep it for yourself instead of paying it on a bills. You've got that buffer. I generally try and have a buffer on all my bills anyway. If I had a cash buffer in my bank account, I will spend it. Guaranteed I will spend it. And on frivolous things that I don't need. I'll be like, oh, sparklies, or oh, it's pretty. You know what I would do with it? I bloody put in a massive order with black and blue for one of those glitter pens. I was already planning on putting in 5-pen order. It's $150 in Australia for that order, for 5 pens. I'm ridiculous. And I'm kind of devastated that I didn't get to, but that's a whole nother issue. And so yeah, so I would just spend it. So I am actually doing a savings challenge for a buffer, but that's going to be a cash buffer. But I always try and have a buffer for my bills. So I pay an extra $25 a fortnight on my rent. I mean, I know that's not a lot. It's not. But I haven't touched it in I don't even know how long. So I've nearly got a week's rent just sitting there in credit. And I don't plan on touching it. And also, that can be something you utilize if you're going to move. For example, the last time we moved, which this was 10 years ago now, over 10 years. But the last time we moved, I paid in credit all of our bills. And what happened is, when we moved, we had a 2-week buffer of where we didn't have to pay rent in the old place. We could focus on paying on the new place, and it gave us 2 weeks to empty out the property, clean it up, and then hand in the keys. We weren't because in the past we've literally started moving one day and had to be out that day. And it was horrendous, and I'm never doing that again. So you can also utilize some of these tips when you're moving. Like when you just don't feel like cooking, you can have gift cards there waiting to buy food or have it delivered. So yeah, that's also something for home. What else have we got for home? I think that's pretty much it for like the categories, but some additional stuff would be, in Australia you can buy like prepaid Visa cards. So like you can use them just as you would use a credit card. They're prepaid Visa cards, and you can either buy them and put whatever money you want on them, or you can buy them just like in a $25 gift card, or you can buy one and load, say, $45 on it. It's up to you. Whenever you've got a little bit of money, start buying them and just chuck them in a drawer. You would be surprised at how quickly they add up. They usually last for at least 12 months, sometimes even more. And just let it accumulate, and that can be your spending money when you go on vacation. So whatever's in the drawer, well, that's our spending money. And also, it means you're not carrying a lot of cash. And 2, you can leave like the bulk of the gift cards in the room, and you could say, okay, everyone gets a $25 gift card today. That's your spending money for the day. And then once the gift card is done, it's done. So, and if they've got their own little bit of spending money, they can add to the gift card. So they can get $25 and say their item's $30. They just chuck $5 in. So I found that really, really useful. And it can also be used for fuel. It can be used for food. If there's anything, it can be used to buy gifts while you're away. I also do this kind of stuff for Christmas too. I'll randomly buy a gift card, chuck it in a drawer. And then you can include it in presents, like at Christmas, or you can use it to spend to buy gifts. What else is there? Okay, I think it's pretty much it. Now, quick side note, if you live in Australia and you need to travel for medical expenses, I'm not sure if you know this, but I wanted to let you know. Other countries may have this, you just don't know about it. So ask your medical service provider if there's a program that if you have to travel for medical appointments, is there a program? Now, in Australia, it's called IPTAS. So it's IPTAAS. IPTAS. And what it means is if you have to travel more than 110 kilometers, that's like there and back combined. So at minimum, like 55 kilometers there, 55 back. If you have to travel more than 110 kilometers, you can lodge paperwork and get a refund. So not only do you get a refund on things like accommodation, and I think it's up to 80% rebate. So you get up to 80% of it back. Not only do you get a rebate on accommodation, they also pay you 44 cents per kilometre that you drive. So if you're driving there, so for us, we're driving to Sydney, it's 180 kilometres there and 180 kilometres back. So we would get 44 cents for that whole trip. So what's that, 360 kilometres? I think so. So that's 360 kilometres that we'd get a rebate for. Another thing, I didn't know about this until recently. A lot of hospitals, so especially metro hospitals, they have what's called an accommodation officer. Now, what they do, like I said, I didn't know that these existed until this last appointment, and I stumbled upon it on the internet. Now, if you've got to go to a metro hospital, particularly metro, other hospitals might have it, but particularly big hospitals, they will have what's called an accommodation officer. And what they do is they often have deals with all the surrounding hotels, and you can get a discount because you're a patient and your family can stay in a hotel at a discounted rate. For example, the room that I was looking at, they do have a set standard of rooms. So, for example, because there's 4 of us, we're eligible for a room with 2 king-size beds. So what they do is you give them your details and when you're going to be there. They reach out to the hotel that you want to stay at because they've got a set list. They send out an email confirming that you're a patient, how long you're going to be there, and how many people are going to stay in the room. And you will get a discount. Now, that room that I was just talking about, that room with the 2 king-size beds, was $392 per night at the hotel we were staying at. And we were going to pay it because it's literally a 2-minute walk to the hospital. It's got underground parking and all that stuff. So that room that we were going to pay $390 something for, we got it for $130 through the accommodation officer. Now that is a massive saving. That's huge. And on top of that, they're going to provide a cot for Evelyn because we were going to have to take a porta cot. They're going to provide a cot for Evelyn and all of the linen for that. And because I rang up, I requested to have an early check-in because of William, because he's got a disability. So it means that we can check in earlier and as soon as the room is cleaned, rather than having to wait till like 2 or 3 p.m. to check in. They also have underground parking, secured parking, which is really, really great, especially in the city. Like, parking is impossible down there. And, like, parking in a parking garage, it's so freaking expensive. And there's no parking on the hospital grounds because it's literally in the middle of Sydney. So yeah, so if you live in a regional or rural area and you have to travel to a major hospital for any kind of procedure, and it doesn't even have to be a hospital. If you have to travel to say see like I have to see a neurologist, or if you need to see an OBGYN, because a lot of the times if you're an OBGYN patient, if you've got any type of complication, I mean like anything, they send you to a metro hospital, which not so fun. It's tough and it's scary, because they basically say, well, if you go into labor, we're putting you in an ambulance and we're driving you 4 hours to that hospital and hope that you get there in one piece. Yeah, the medical care in regional and rural Australia is ridiculous. But anyway, that's my whole other soapbox. I could rant quite vehemently on that box. So yeah, so if you're traveling for a medical appointment, look up IPTAS. You can do it online, or you can be given forms. The accommodation officer actually sent them to me. You need to get your GP to fill them out, and the hospital staff. And yeah, you get your rebate. They just transfer it straight into your bank account. It doesn't take very long, a couple of days maybe. Yeah, you just got to keep your receipts. So your accommodation receipt, and well, they know where you live and they know where you have to go, so they calculate the kilometers. But I thought those two programs were amazing, and not a lot of people know about them. I'm actually surprised at how many people don't know. So if you live in another country, maybe speak to your GP or ring up your like health line and see if they've got any programs similar to this. They might have one and you just don't know about it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope it helps. I know it was a bit wordy, and I didn't really have anything to show you, but it's a bit hard. I hope this helps someone. If you've got any other tips or tricks about what you do when you travel, leave them down in the comments for other people to read and look at. And yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Remember to live, laugh, love, and when life gets hard, just roll it in glitter. Bye, guys.